ready? So good morning, everyone. Firstly, thank you so much for taking the time to come along and listen to us today. Really appreciate it, and it's great to see you all here. Firstly, my name is Callum Wood. I'm the Group Sales Director here at CitNOW Group, and I'm also joined by Oliver Parsons today, our Director of Customer Success. We wanted to do something a little bit different today, or try something a little bit different for this type of seminar. We wanted to try and avoid kind of putting up the whole CitNOW Group ecosystem and doing a CitNOW sales pitch saying, here are all the products and here how they can revolutionize your business. So we're going to try and do something a bit different with data, which I'll come on to in a second. But just for those of you, or if anyone isn't familiar with the CitNOW Group, this is our mission statement. So we're all about providing market-leading automotive solutions to drive efficiencies and seamlessly transforming every customer moment. And ultimately, we're here to help dealers, dealer groups, and OEMs sell more cars and more parts more profitably. So what are we going to talk about today? So Ollie and I are going to run through how to identify revenue and performance wins. And really, we're going to try and do that by looking at two sets of data. The first set of data was a survey that we sent out to over 1,000 retailers, dealers in the UK. And the second set of data using our Real Insights BI tool to compare market data with real dealer data to pick out particular market trends. And really hone in on and try and work out what the retailers performing at the top of the charts were doing really well and how they were doing that, and try and pass on the information. So sticking to tradition, we're going to split this into two sectors, after sales and sales, and Ollie is going to start with after sales. So Ollie, over to you.
Thanks very much, Callum, and good morning, everybody. As Callum said, thank you very much for coming along to see our session today. So a lot of the sessions here today will talk about the future, EV strategy, direct sales, digital transformation, all of those things, and that's absolutely fine, and of course CitNOW Group are right in amongst those conversations and planning as well. But today, following the last couple of years, which has been fairly buoyant for the automotive industry with really good used values and price increases, busy workshops, but we recognise through talking to you and through the press that actually the tides are starting to turn now, and things are starting to get a bit tighter. So what we thought we'd do today is look at the here and now and some of the data and how we can apply that and make best use of the resource we've got in our businesses today. So, and at this point, I should point out that what we talk about today isn't going to be anything new, okay? And we're not coming here to try and tell anybody how to do their jobs. We're just using the data to try and illustrate some points. So the survey that Callum mentioned, that we went out to our CitNOW and RTC customers, we asked some questions, and 70% of the retailers told us that they believed their after-sales team were not maximising all the revenue opportunities. That's 7 out of 10 retailers thinking they're not maximising the opportunities on the table. So the big question is why? And obviously we've got great technology, we've got great processes in place, but the important thing is about looking at the basics and not forgetting those basics. In today's world, following 8 out of 10 steps in a process just simply isn't good enough. We've got to have polished and consistent processes are the key to unlocking the future potential. So in that survey, we went out with, you told us this basically. Now there was lots of challenges in the retail world at the moment, but technician resource coming up there as one of the top ones, and that's nothing new. Technician resource has been a problem for quite some time, recruiting, keeping them, and utilising them. Obviously, the cost of living crisis is impacting our consumers and their ability to spend on new cars, maintain their cars, and so on. And that cost of living crisis transfers straight across into your businesses as well, and it costs more now just to keep the doors open. And of course, customer retention remains a focus. How can we bring more of those older vehicles into the workshops, particularly at a time when the EV park is increasing? We think it will be a while before the EV park dominates, but actually that gives us a refreshed vigour to look at bringing some of those older cars back into the businesses. So we've taken a look at this data, and we're going to take a deep dive into some of the top performers within that data set today that have managed to improve their performance quarter on quarter through 2023. And what do we mean by that? Well, we've seen, when we look at that top set of data, they've improved their red conversion by 11% quarter on quarter. Now that's standing an average of 62.7%, and if we compare that to the average set of the rest of the data, it's around 49%. So quite a lot of extra work being converted by those top performers. And it's the same with technician utilization as well. That's improved by 10% quarter on quarter, up to 92.8%. So, and again, against an average retailer performance of 81%. So again, a marked difference in how they're utilizing the resource at their disposal today. So this combination of factors of increasing conversion and utilization is really driving that extra performance to the point where we think it's worth about £170,000 per rooftop per annum on red work alone. And if you multiply that by the number of sites in your group, whether it's 5, 10, 20 or 50 plus, you see that those sums quickly multiply up into some pretty big numbers. So the big question is, what are the factors that are leading to this increased revenue? Data, heart of everything we do. You're going to hear that everywhere you go today. And everybody in this room will be doing something to look at their span of performance, how they move up from the bottom quartiles up through the span of performance to improve everything that they're doing in their business. And using data to go beyond benchmarking is what we're talking about today. Looking at it and having an action plan and some robust, repeatable processes in place that you can drive that performance with. And these benchmarking activities are really quite difficult when you've got a mixed estate of products. So it's really important to have one BI tool that can bring all of that data together and let you analyze it and dive into the insight with it. So in the following slides, we're going to look at what we've got from that data and areas that can be improved. Now, I said at the beginning, I don't want to stand here and tell you, and neither does Callum, how to run your businesses, but what we do know is what gets measured gets done. Age old. Setting standards and objectives by team and individual teams drives responsibilities and it increases performance. That's been proved over and over again. So measuring it, looking at the data and diving into the insight is really, really key. The top performing locations we look at over the course of the next few slides had these measures in place and were able to identify team members and areas of their business that weren't delivering and quickly have reviews and consistently redevelop that over time. So keeping the focus in the right areas is the key to driving the performance. So some of those reviews and what they turned out from a technician point of view is firstly looking at the completion rate of EVHCs. So how many times are the technicians starting but not finishing an EVHC for whatever reason? So the top performers are completing over 95% of their EVHCs compared to an average of around 87%. So that focus means less wasted time and better utilization of the resource in your business today. And secondly, tracking whether a video goes with every single EVHC. No surprise, I'm going to say that, I'm from CitNOW. But we know it's proven. It's over an 11% increase in conversion when we send a video with the EVHC. And the final piece can't see that. Yeah, video with it. And then the final piece is how long are the technicians spending on each vehicle? So we've analysed the data. We see that when a technician spends 5 minutes or less on an EVHC compared to spending a sweet spot of around 10 to 15 minutes, there's a marked difference in it. In fact, 25% more work identified when they spend between 10 and 15 minutes on that EVHC. So have a look at that. Are your technicians spending the right amount of time on their EVHCs? If we turn that to advisors, looking at the optimal customer contact time. So again, our booking service is being made at the right time. And when you're resourcing your contact centres and your advisors, have a look at this data. So we found in our data that Mondays, 31% conversion on those outbound activities compared to a Thursday at 19%. So that's really helpful insight to help you make those additions to your resourcing. And then around accurate work decline. So we see 38% of the decline reasons in our data set do not have a detailed reason as to why they've been declined. So how do you know what you need to do? How do you know what you need to change? By recording that, you've got a granular level. You can understand if there are changes to your commercial proposition you need to make or if there's training issues around the business as well. So that's really important to record those, and lots of systems allow you to do that. And then maximising upsell opportunities, obvious, right? But we still leave stuff on the table every day. And if we look at tyres just as an example, it's well documented, #1 reason for defection, and also one of the lowest rates of conversion, under 30%. So making sure your advisors are equipped to have those conversations around tyres is really, really important. And the research highlighted this, so I'm going to come back to the technician piece as well. Getting the most from your technicians that you have in the business today can really make a big, big impact. So we know technician resource is finite, we know it's difficult to recruit, we know it's difficult to maintain. There are loads of things we could talk about around that, a whole nother session. But what the top performers are doing is they're loading their workshop really at a very optimized level. They're getting the right vehicles in at the right time. They've got that EVHC done immediately and straight out to the customer, so they get the approval back quickly. This sounds really simple stuff, but it just doesn't get done. And some of the top performers that we noticed, one of the things we really liked was they have a fast lane operation. So apprentice in the business or a lower skilled maintenance technician doing all of the EVHCs as the vehicles come in. So when the car's then on the ramp with the technician allocated to do the work, there's a damn good chance you've got the approval for that additional identified work already, and the technician doesn't have to get the car off the ramp, park it up, lose 20 minutes of time in every single vehicle that happens to. 3 vehicles a day, an hour of technician time that can be billed and upsold. So it's a really, really important place to look. And it doesn't just deliver better customer satisfaction, it delivers retention, it improves the capacity of the workshop, and therefore, really importantly, has a positive impact on your lead times as well, from the same resource you have today. So it's a really good area to deep dive into. And now our top performers are achieving almost 93% technician utilization actually, improved by 10% versus last year's data set. And that data set moved 1% with the average. So it's a really important area. And to put that into context, what that looks like for an average retailer with average performance could add 377 more jobs through the workshop with all the money that comes with that, which is £125,000 worth of extra service and red work opportunities when we look at the data. So how can we support that? What do you consider when you're improving utilization? Well, are your systems and processes integrated? Are they talking to each other? So we know that can you get your parts prices, your tire prices really quickly with little or no delay? Logging into multiple different systems we know slows the process down. So having a really good process around that is really key. And looking at resource management as well. Are we allocating the right jobs to the right skilled set of technician with the right level of experience? And we talked just now about the fast lane idea. I love that idea. I think it would work really well in a lot of places. And optimizing jobs to get them through as quickly and as efficiently as possible. We know that pricing, getting approval can all take time, so how can we move through that flow of allocation, identification, approval, to actually starting work in a matter of minutes, not in hours? It all makes such a big difference to keeping technicians busy. So we started at the beginning of this session talking about the here and now. I hope that's given you, over the last 10 minutes, a reasonable idea of the kind of areas that you can focus on. What it really does all boil down to is a full understanding of current performance levels, what you can do to track that and monitor it, individuals and across your team, but also the processes and systems you've got in place. So really simply, it's process, it's people, it's accountability. And the data shows us that where these improvements can be made, and the key with the existing levels of resource. So yes, we should all be looking at the future challenges, and I'm sure we all are. I know we are back at CitNOW Group, but I think it's really important at the moment to look at the here and now and what we can do with a little extra focus. So I really hope you found that a useful session. I look forward to seeing you, as many of you as possible, on the stand later, but for now I'm going to hand over to Callum to have a look at sales.
Thanks, Ollie. So yeah, just focusing on sales now, I'm going to concentrate on 2 areas in particular. Firstly, the importance of having an effective stock strategy in place, and secondly, looking at lead generation and the management of those leads that come through. So first of all, stock strategy. So as Ollie said, completely appreciate that this isn't anything new or revolutionary, and actually you'll see from the data in a second that we can see the majority of retailers are doing this already, which is fantastic to see. But it became very obvious very quickly from the data when we analysed it that those dealers performing at the top of the charts were the ones that had an effective stock strategy in place. When we dug into that a bit more, these were the key areas of that stock strategy that they were doing really well. So the first one was analysing the age and mileage of their stock and constantly comparing that against the rest of the market. Second one was around desirability, so looking at customer trends, what customers were looking at in vehicles, and again, aligning their stock to that. We also looked at days in stock, so having a target turn rate for your stock and identifying vehicles that sit outside of that target rate. And finally, make and model. So any key differentiators on vehicles could be make or model, could be other differences that can be affected by market fluctuations or impact the fluctuations themselves. So that's kind of what we saw from what encompasses an effective stock strategy. So moving on to the data, so these next two bits of data come from our dealer survey that I mentioned earlier, going out to around 1,000 dealers. We asked them some kind of really straightforward questions, and the first one was around the importance of stock strategy. So do they see it as important to have a stock strategy in place? And unsurprisingly, 91% came back and said, yes, they do. Linked to this, another question we asked was around the importance of keeping pace with pricing change and whether they felt they were keeping up with those changing prices in the market. And again, another really high, 81% came back and said yes, they were confident that they were keeping up with those changes. However, on the flip side, when we looked at the other set of data from Real Insights and took the market data, compared it to dealer data, we actually found that around 78% of vehicles did need some type of price attention compared to the market data. Now, some of this could be pennies, a few pounds here or there, but some of it could be quite significant. And so when we drilled into that even further, we found that 40% of that stock actually needed an adjustment by over 2%. Again, 2% doesn't sound that much, but if you take the average price of a used vehicle, it's quite a significant amount of money, and that can be up or down. So I think when we're comparing these two sets of data, what we can kind of take from it is that there's a lot of dealer confidence in these areas in stock strategy, which is great, and people see it as an effective thing to have in place. But there's still loads of room to generate even more efficiencies and gains by refining it even further. So what do those gains actually look like? So this is a real kind of case study, I guess, from a retailer group that we worked with to introduce a stock strategy. And we measured two metrics, days in stock, the grey line there, and the gross profit per unit, it's a mouthful, the GPPU, and measured that over time, pre and post the implementation of this stock strategy. And when you put that into numbers, what we found was after the stock strategy had been introduced and refined, the GPPU increased by £250 per vehicle, so quite a significant increase. But also the days to sell on each vehicle on average reduced by 25. So those vehicles were selling 25 days quicker on average than they were previously. So that's one area. I'm going to switch now to the importance of lead management. So again, just looking at what makes up an effective lead management system and looking at the data and the feedback we got from the retailers, these were the four key areas that we came to. The first one is photography. So having high quality, consistent images against every vehicle that's advertised online. But also having a process in place that allows you to do that quickly and efficiently to avoid imageless adverts that we all know don't really generate very good leads. Secondly, video. It wouldn't be a CitNOW presentation without mentioning video, but it is a key differentiator, and it does make a huge difference to the amount of leads that get generated online, but also the quality of the leads that come through. Thirdly, communication. So twofold on this, really. Firstly, enabling customers to communicate with you 24/7, so outside of working hours is really important. But secondly, giving the customer the ability to communicate through several different communication channels, or giving them the ability to choose which channel they want to communicate through. So that could be a more traditional, stagnant form, like an online form, or it could be things like live chat, WhatsApp, SMS, even a customer-facing app that you've put in front of the customer and feeding communication through that. And linking to this, how seamless that is. So it's creating that seamless journey from inquiry to first contact to purchase, giving the customer the ability to change communication channels during that journey and not have to restart the conversation all over again. collecting that data in an effective way and then feeding back to the customer in an insightful manner. And just linking to this, one of the things we picked out in the data was the amount of inquiries that came through outside of working hours. Again, you'll all know this far better than we do, but we found 24% of inquiries were made outside of working hours. So just confirming that view that customers are really shopping 24/7, whether it's in the evening, on bank holidays, at weekends, and having something in place to manage that is really important. So we then looked at kind of what tools the retailers were using. So again, this comes from the survey that we sent out to those retailers. We asked them what tools they were already using. So quite a mixed data set here, really. You can see a good proportion of the dealers were using things like enhanced photography and stock price tools, but just over half of dealers were using things like tailored communications and stock-specific video and media. So again, I think what we can take from this is that there's loads of innovation in this space already from retailers, which is great to see. But again, so much room to continue to improve and get those efficiencies from introducing tools like this. I mentioned video earlier. I do have a stat on it. So one of the things we picked out on the data was introducing a video against an online advert reduced the days in stock by 35%. So just putting a video against an online advert sold that vehicle 35% quicker on average. And those were actually vehicles, we kind of confined the data down slightly. So those were vehicles that already had what we would consider a good asset set against them. So they already had 40 images against them. Introducing a video into that made the vehicle sell a lot quicker. And again, bring it back to kind of real life data. And when we worked with this was another case study from a retailer group, an AM top 5 retailer group across all brands. We introduced an imagery tool, so this is not video, just imagery now, and a proper process and structure to capture those imagery. And the first thing was it produced consistent and high quality images, as you can see in the middle there. But the stats were quite astounding, really. So we measured this month on month, so June and July, June without this, July with it, and we saw a 74% increase in website visits after introducing this. It generated over 1,000 additional leads compared to June and July. And interestingly, it also increased the amount of stock that was advertised by 14%. I think really advertising that if you give the right tools to the right people, then these efficiencies really come through. So in summary for sales, the 3 key takeaways here. Firstly, you can maximize performance through bespoke stock strategy. Secondly, present all of your stock consistently and with the best quality assets available, but also being able to do that quickly and efficiently. And finally, to consider how you communicate with your customer. So giving them the ability to choose what channel they want to communicate through and ensuring they can switch between those channels efficiently and effectively. And that's it from us. Hopefully I haven't bored you too much with all of that and you found it insightful. As we said, we really wanted to look at the data, look at the real data, and give some takeaways that can hopefully go and help you in your businesses. We're on stand C10, which is just over there, so please feel free to come over and chat to us. We'd love to talk to you about everything CitNOW can do and the CitNOW Group ecosystem can provide. So hope to see you all there. Thanks very much.